Hello, my name is Emma Ride and I'm Director of AstroCymru. We deliver astronomy and space-related workshops to schools, festivals and public events, focusing mainly on deprived and isolated areas. I work alongside Sarah Bridgen, who is an artist who collaborates with me on space art workshops. Sarah?
Yep. Okay. You've just introduced me. My name is Sarah Bridgeland. I'm an artist. I have my own practice, but alongside this, I do arts education and outreach work. And for the past few years, I've had the pleasure of working with Emma, and this is our most recent project together, which she's going to tell you more about.
I've worked alongside Pete Williamson as well for a number of years. Pete runs the Solar Sphere Festival and Astro Radio. Pete?
I'm involved with this because Emma wants me to talk a little bit about Mars, because I can remember times before anything ever went into space. So she thought, what I'm going to do is bring an old fossil into this, and she has done. But I also work with the BBC as a presenter on Eye on the Sky, and I also work alongside a lot of other organisations such as Cardiff University, Cambridge University, and many others as a freelance astronomer. So there we go. But as I say, today it's all about Mars, and Emma has been doing some outstanding work with Sarah, helping people through the COVID situation as well. So over to you, Emma.
Okay, so we brought this project around celebrating the human exploration of Mars, which was fully funded by the UK Space Agency. This project was brought about to raise awareness of the UK Space Agency and the space industry in the UK to underserved communities who has been hit particularly hard with the COVID pandemic. So we chose an area in Rhondda and Taff, which is one of the most deprived areas in Wales, called Trebanog, which is an isolated community on top of a mountain in Rhondda. Sarah, would you like to talk a little bit about the community?
Yeah, so we did a project together in the community 2 years ago, wasn't it, obviously?
2019, and that was to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the moon landings.
The moon landings. So yeah, I had a bit of experience working in the community there. Yeah, I'm not from the area, and it's been amazing to get to know the community and individuals who live there and see how the work that we're doing is helping them and bringing people together. It was 6 weeks long, the project?
Yes. Yeah.
6 weeks long, yeah.
Yeah. So we delivered presentations and space-related art and craft workshops. So we started off week one, we set off the project with our 3D shows. So we focused on Mars. We looked at the size of Mars. We looked at Mars's position in the solar system in relation to the asteroid belt. And we looked at the surface of Mars as well. So of course, because it was in 3D, we had sandstorms on Mars coming towards people. We had asteroids coming towards people. And of course, they were really excited and were trying to grab all the different objects as well. So once we'd done a variety of different topics on Mars with the 3D shows, we give the participant art packs. So Sarah put together these art packs.
Yeah, that was something as a response to COVID, wasn't it? Because you especially had been, obviously we couldn't deliver in-person workshops in schools in the previous few terms. So we both kind of grown accustomed to giving out art packs and dropping them off at schools, and you doing delivering workshops in that way. And that was a really successful format. So each week we would put together an art pack. And my background as an artist is working with paper collage and cutting and pasting with paper and different types of paper and card, using different kind of weights, textures. And so in these art packs, and because we were coming from this angle of collage, we would include all these different things, sort of a mixture of different colours and tissue paper, so the kids and the families could explore kind of opacity, and we'd include stickers. We'd have star stickers, dot stickers, and we tried to sort of keep it fresh each week by giving them a mix, didn't we, of the materials. Just, yeah, it makes it more exciting, doesn't it? And there was something really lovely, especially for the children, I think, in having these materials and having their very own art pack, because a lot, you know, from what I understood from talking to people, a lot of these children didn't have access to any of these materials at home. So that was something that really, you know, to enable them to make things with these materials was really quite exciting. So yeah, every week we would make these packs up and hand them out to very happy faces, usually.
Yes, a week where we included magazines about Mars, so they could cut out pictures of Mars as well. That week they made things like Mars in the solar system, Mars and its 2 moons. So lots of different things based on Mars and so its position in the solar system.
Sort of 2D collages, wasn't it, at that point?
Yes, 2D collages.
Working 2-dimensionally, yeah.
Yeah. And then the second week then, we were looking at past missions on Mars, and the art packs were based on satellites, probes and rovers. So the presentation we did, we looked at various different missions that had happened on Mars, from Mariner to Spirit and Opportunity, and of course we mentioned the British-made Beagle 2 as well. And Peter's lucky enough to remember all these missions. You remember Mariner, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, the Mariner mission particularly is one that sticks in my mind because before that, even on BBC Sky at night, they believed that when Mariner arrived at Mars, you would see vegetation, you would see some form of water flowing, and you would see maybe even some form of life. Because before that, we all thought there were canals on Mars. Schiaparelli discovered or thought he saw canali, which was then Percival Lowell transformed into canals. Pictures were drawn, and for people that were around at the time, I wasn't around at this time, but there was a radio broadcast called War of the Worlds. Mars was a massive fever back in the day. Everybody believed aliens were coming from Mars. Even aliens were, every time anybody mentioned aliens, they were not aliens then, they were Martians. And a radio broadcast went out in 1939 called War of the Worlds. Everybody believed it was actually a news story and ran for the shelters. So that's how much Mars has influenced people. But when Mariner went up, me as a child at the time was so excited, thinking we're going to see Martians at last. We're going to see aliens. Even, like I say, Patrick Moore, the night before Mariner sent back its first images, believed we would see something. And we saw a cratered world that looked very much like the moon. And I can remember the disappointment and thinking, well, that's it then. That's it. Mars is boring. I don't want to be interested in Mars anymore. And everybody was deflated. But yeah, I remember it. And Viking 1 and 2, remember those? Again, we were excited. Maybe if they land on Mars, it will look different. We might see something. And it landed. And what did we see? A rock-strewn surface for miles and miles. And nothing any different to a desert with rocks in it. And we thought, you know, this is just not interesting. But as we know, Mars is interesting, as we found now. And of course, that went on. We've had many other missions, but Beagle 2, I remember, because I met an engineer from Beagle 2 who lives actually local to me. And then I met Colin Pillinger, and he's got massive hopes on Beagle 2's success and landing on Mars. And of course, it eventually, and he's such a nice chap. And sadly, you know, we know that Beagle 2 did make it to the surface of Mars. It wasn't destroyed, but one of its, as we could call them, solar petals didn't open properly, and it didn't get the power that it needed to transmit. But you know, Beagle 2, we could put it down as a British success, I think, because it did land successfully. It didn't transmit, and that's just down to a rock being in the way. Nothing to do with the spacecraft failing at all. So it was nice to meet somebody who was involved, but I feel really sad that Colin died before he knew that his spacecraft has actually landed. And then we come on to Spirit and Opportunity. Well, what can you say about Spirit and Opportunity? Absolutely, absolutely amazing probes and rovers there, sending back images of the surface of Mars, looking at the fact that we can see salt deposits in craters, which are possibly water flowing from craters. So there is a possibility of some form of water, although it's going to be very salty because that enables it to stay liquid below freezing temperature. Of course, Mars having a surface temperature that's minus 135 degrees on average. So, you know, it's nice to be able to see that they're doing that. So, yeah, it's great, Emma, and you're doing some great work telling the kids about these probes and educating, because it makes it real for them. It makes it real for them because you see all these sci-fi programs, but reality is often much, much more interesting.
Yeah, so the art packs that we done then, thank you, Pete. The art packs that we done then were based on satellite probes and rovers. So they've got to design their own probes and rovers. What did we include that with, Sarah?
Well, again, we included a mix of different cards and papers, but the main thing was including a matchbox. So that was going to be the starting point for the Mars rover. That was kind of the body. Yeah, and they were really excited by that and kind of putting things inside the matchboxes. You can see people really went to town. Yeah, there was some really fantastic work, really intricate work as well, and sort of, yeah, we started kind of being more experimental, working three-dimensional. We taught a lot of the kids how to make sort of the springs, so they could make these sort of pop-up worlds, and sort of playing with shadows, and it was really lovely to see, just to, you know, to start with this really humble object, this matchbox, and just seeing where they took it, and they all took it in such different ways, which was really, really fantastic. So yeah.
Lovely. That week 3 then we looked at current missions on Mars, so what we know today and what we have found out from InSight, that is discovered that Mars has quakes. So we call them Mars quakes, to MAVEN, that's looking at the atmosphere of Mars and how much atmosphere has been lost to space, and the climate and the history of the climate on Mars. And of course, Curiosity, that has spectrometers that's looking at the chemistry on Mars, taking lots and lots of images, and again, looking at the atmosphere of Mars as well. So in our art packs that week, again, we added matchboxes, but Sarah, you've done templates as well.
We made, it was inspired actually by something I'd actually seen in a publication, where they kind of made this kind of template for a moon buggy, and I took my inspiration from that and designed one for us, and yeah, it was kind of bigger than the matchbox, but had these kind of probes that would come off it, and all these kind of buttons, and the kids really enjoyed kind of making their own buttons and their own probes coming off it. Yeah, and the stickers, they really love the stickers, and it was just really lovely to see them, yeah, making, it was all very individual, and just watching their kind of the decision making process as they were making these things as well. You know, that, I mean, that's a really important thing, I think, to mention, the fact that, you know, that this is a massive problem solving kind of activity. You know, it's obviously with the template there was correct way to do that, and but you know, once you've made the kind of body of the satellite, you could take it in any different way, and it really did fire up different imaginations and what they could create, and again, seeing, I think this is the first week I've really sort of noticed how brilliant it was to see families working together and supporting each other with the making, and that was, yeah, something really to see that connection between, you know, siblings working together, helping each other, grandparents coming along with grandchildren, and again, kind of working together. And it's just something, I think that's a really fantastic thing that we're doing really with this project.
We also looked at latest images that Pete has processed from the Perseverance rover as well. And Pete, you're going to talk a little bit about that later on, aren't you? Images, yeah. On week 4 then, we had a look at future missions to Mars. So humans, actually inhabiting Mars. We looked at how are we going to get to Mars, what equipment are we going to take, what are we going to need to sustain ourselves on Mars. And we done pop-up cards for this, Sarah, didn't we? So they done pop-up cards with rockets on them and other satellites, but also about biodomes and vegetation.
Yeah, so there were spaceports as well, weren't there? And we designed this card that had the biodome on, that sort of gave at least, kind of set the scene really, didn't it? For people to kind of like, imagine what they'd need or what they'd grow, what they'd take with them to this new world. And again, everyone's interpretation was very, very different, wasn't it, about what they imagined and what they could take, and that was always really lovely to see. Different lots of different responses.
And a lot of the children as well were really concerned on whether or not they would be able to have internet on Mars. So of course, when I told them that yes, that's absolutely possible and doable, they were like, yes, ready to go. They wanted to go to Mars. That was funny. So on week 5, what we did was we started to bring everybody's work together. So we give them homework of designing their own rockets to go to Mars. So they brought in their own rockets that they designed, and they brought in all the other arts and craft pieces that they've been working on at home as well. And then we decided to go off with a blast, really, and we made paper rockets that are powered by an air compressor. So they made the rockets, and then we took them outside to launch them then. And one little lad, Jacob, in the beginning, Jacob really struggled to get involved, didn't he? He is on the spectrum, bless him. Yeah. And he struggled to get involved, but as the weeks were progressing, he did, didn't he? He started to interact and get involved in making things with his mum and his brother and his sister. Yeah. And Jacob absolutely loved doing the rockets. Yeah. He was so excited to launch the rockets that we made a little video of Jacob launching his rockets. He was so excited, wasn't he? Yeah, bless him. Yeah. And then on week 6 then, we brought everybody's work, we put them all in little boxes, and we allowed them then to put them on displays. So we brought in lots of display boards so that they could display their work, and for taking part in the project and dedicating themselves every single week to coming along to the project, we put together little goodie packs for them to have, which included a Mars activity book with lots of puzzles in there, stickers, pencils, magazines all about being astronauts and working in the space industry. And that's when we done recordings then for our radio show. So usually I would do evaluation forms and judge how the workshops went, but we thought because of COVID and lots of handling of paper, I thought it might be a good idea to actually record everybody's opinions. So we've done a little radio show, and we've included Peter and Gwyn, and Peter and Gwyn are neighbours who also decided, apart from doing lots of little art pieces, they decided to do their own little projects as well. Peter done a landscape and Gwyn done a rover. Sarah, do you want to talk about Peter?
Yeah, these guys, I've heard lots about these guys from the previous project that we did, and it was really lovely to meet them and to see what they'd made. It was incredible. They'd put so much effort into it. There was some healthy competition between the two of them, which I think is good. That can be a good thing. It was really lovely to hear sort of how enthusiastic they were and why. I know they've, Pete worked with his family to make his creation, and that was, again, I've mentioned this, but really lovely to see him working with his grandchildren and his wife and to come up with ideas, and it really was this kind of joint collaborative effort. And Pete and Gwyn, I should say, Gwyn, so much effort into his too, and he really kind of it's quite emotional talking to him, because you could just, he lives on his own, and this gave him this huge sense of purpose. You could tell from the way he was talking about it, and how, you know, how much effort he put in. And I know you're friendly with him, and I know how much he kind of treasures your friendship, and you know, you've opened up worlds to both these guys in sharing the work that you do, and your passion for the night sky. And you know, the way they would talk about you, and they're kind of looking up at night, looking for satellites. I think that kind of thing really can't be measured. You know, you've kind of, especially given the last 18 months, you know, yes, people living on their own. Well, it's been difficult for everyone, hasn't it, really? But it's been, I think that's a brilliant thing that you've done. Yeah. So
yeah, with Gwyn, it helped with like his loneliness and stuff, stopped him from being lonely. You talked about how you enjoyed doing the Mars rover, but we'll listen to that a little bit later. Who else was on the radio? We had Sarah and her family, Keely, Jaden and Jacob, and she talks about how it was really beneficial to Jacob and to her as well, being part of this project.
Yeah.
And then we had Ruby, Lou and Kenzie. These are brother and sister.
Yeah.
And they come every single week, didn't they? Kenzie was so enthusiastic to
Kenzie would
come every week.
He'd turn up early. He was keen, very keen Kenzie.
But Ruby Lou, in the beginning, she didn't really want to take part. She was almost too cool for school for these workshops to start with. But she came every single week. And as the weeks were going on, she brought in new friends as well, didn't she?
Yeah.
She would bring her friend along as well. And Kenzie, like I say, he was so excited. This one week, he was actually shouting at us, coming down the steps, so excited to show us what he had produced. And I managed to catch him on video.
He can't run quick enough, can he?
So excited to show us what he had made in the house.
So
yeah, bless them.
Yeah.
And then, oh yes, talk about Kenzie.
No, I really want to mention the yellow bucket, which he turned up with one week. I mean, every week he would just come with more and more stuff, wouldn't he? He was so enthusiastic, and yeah, one week he came in with this yellow bucket, and it was just full of, he'd obviously at home found, you know, junk modeling, you know, sort of, you know, recycling things, boxes, you know, loo roll tubes, and he kind of collected it, and he'd made just all sorts of different things using what he could find around the house. And I think that was just so brilliant. It was really resourceful and creative, and it just goes to show you don't have to have, you know, expensive art materials to be creative and to make things if you've got a passion for it and you've got energy and enthusiasm for it, which he clearly has in abundance. So he just kept pulling these things out of the bucket, and and it was kind of him that made me think, when we were doing the exhibition, right, you put up your display, because he had very clear ideas about what he wanted to go where, but also, like, it's clear that he hadn't also been given that opportunity to do that before, and you know, to have that sense of ownership over his work that he'd made, and he clearly was proud of himself, and rightly so. So it was really, really cool to see him choosing where things should go and arranging this display of objects that he'd made. It was really, really cool to see.
And then we had Peter and his family then, and Peter's going to tell you all about his landscape that he made. But they did make lots of different pieces every week with his wife Katrina and their grandchildren Reese, Sarah and Roman. So for the radio show, the children, I asked them what did they make and would they like to work in the space industry one day. But for the adults, I asked them to explain to me what they'd done during the project, and whether or not the project was beneficial to the community. Pete is going to give us a little slideshow of the various images that we took throughout the project, while the participants are going to talk about what they did.
Okay, so if I share my screen now, better enable sound. It always helps, doesn't it, really? Okay, here we go. That one, tell me if that comes up on the screen okay. Come on, share, share, share. Okay, can you see that okay, Emma?
That's lovely. Thank you, Pete.
Right, off we go then. Here we go, radio interview.
We've seen it advertised in our local community centre that the Space Mars project was going to be shown. Thought it would be a good idea to take the grandchildren, because they've never seen a 3D video. They could see the Mars project and things that they could do. Very well introduced to them this project.
It was the first time for me to see a 3D show, and I'm going on 72.
We've seen the asteroids coming towards us. It was comical to see that the children in the audience were trying to grab them, duck their heads out of the way of them. It was a bit comical, but very interesting.
Yeah.
At the end of the 3D show, we were all given art packs and asked to take them home to do many projects that we wanted to do. The grandchildren found this very helpful because they're into art sort of stuff, and that's where we started to produce many things that if we were to colonize Mars, what we would grow, how we would live on Mars, and that's where our project started, on building accommodation, capsules of how we could grow our fruit and vegetables and produce water. Many things the grandchildren found very interesting.
I think it went brilliantly.
Each week, when we went over to the centre, we were given different art packs to make different things: rockets, space vehicles, moons, satellites. Children, not just the grandchildren, there was many children over there. Kept them entertained, kept them busy. Very interesting to see how different things each table or each children made. Well presented by the two presenters, Sarah and Emma. Very knowledgeable in the stuff that they were presenting and what they were helping the children with. It was a very interesting few weeks. The children were looking forward to each week when they were going over there, what would be next.
They do benefit from it, because there's nothing about for the children to do, and they should be looking at this as for the future.
Yes, I agree with my neighbour Gwyn. It was very interesting that the children were getting more and more involved in this each week, learning about satellites, learning about the moons and the stars, learning about Mars, learning about so many different things. I think it is something that should be taken up a lot more, perhaps in schools, or a lot more of these exhibitions or projects to bring this sort of stuff to the ones who are deprived areas, and a lot more of this should go on. We did learn a lot about the space industry that is in Britain. Surprisingly, how much Wales is involved in British Space Agency. I didn't realise that we had a space industry. I thought we always helped France, America, and just got involved with that sort of stuff. It was very interesting to learn that we have got our own space agency. We learnt about many of the satellites that are travelling around our planet, meteorites. It is now something that when the grandchildren come up, we go out into our garden at night and we look for satellites, we look for meteorites. There's a little competition in a way. We say there's not, but I think there is. My neighbour and I, who spots the first one, how many we spot each. When we see meteorites, oh, did you see that? Because they're only in the sky for seconds, but there was at one time that we did see one bouncing along the atmosphere, so that must have been a pretty large rock that hit the atmosphere, because we've seen that one for about 10-15 seconds.
I seen it first.
And yeah, that's my neighbour. He seen it first, which he did. I'll give him that one. Very interesting to watch the grandchildren come up. And it's, are we going out in the garden tonight? Look for the satellites tonight, Grampy. And we take them out and we call it satellite spotting.
But it's strange to me when we seen that meteorite. To me, it looked like an alien's comet going through the sky, like, and it was unbelievable. For us to spot that, well, before these workshops, I never took any notice of the sky. Didn't even dawn on me about them. I wasn't interested.
Since this project had gone on a few weeks in the centre, it's not just myself and my neighbour, it's the grandchildren. They're looking forward to coming up to the house, coming out to look at the night sky. We're beginning to learn about constellations in the sky, and naming the planets, looking at the planets, and learning more and more each week. And I will say, it's only happened since we've been over the centre and this Mars project, but it's broadened our horizons. The satellite spotting, the grandchildren saying, when we spot one, where is it? And we show them, and oh, their faces light up when they can see the satellites, especially the International Space Station, because that is very bright in the sky. The grandchildren thinks it's absolutely wonderful.
I think it's a good idea, because we've done it with the moon, but they're going further again now on this Mars project. Well, I hope for everybody's sake there will be life on Mars in future years.
If we colonise Mars, to send the probes further out into the universe, knowledge is only going to be learnt. Is there life on other planets? I'm sceptical on that. There's life on Earth. Out of the billions of stars that are up in that sky, who's to say there's not life on another planet? Exhibitions and for people to learn more would be a very good thing for the knowledge of the children, the knowledge not just the children, for the adults. We have learned something over this last few weeks, and I'm very grateful that I did take the grandchildren over to this project, because now we've got something different to do than just sit and watch telly. We go out in the garden for a few hours and look at the night sky. With the art packs that we were given, lots of materials, papers, glue, sellotape, many things that we could make. We made satellites, we done a few little projects of plants that could grow on Mars, and the grandchildren also wanted to do a landscape of Mars. The volcanoes, the craters, so we decided to do a landscape of Mars. 3 volcanoes, or the 3 largest volcanoes that's on Mars, and the deep craters. So I had a roofing tile. We bought quick drying putty, put that on, sprayed it red, used stuff from the art pack to make the craters, paper mache, and the volcanoes. That was done with making a cone out of the papers and the cardboards we were given. Once again, all sprayed in different types of red, because it's not just one red planet. We made it try to look authentic, and it turned out pretty well. The grandchildren was, let me do this, Grampy, or they enjoyed making it. We took all our exhibitions over on the final week, and it was quite a few things that they had made that we took over.
I brought the art packs home. I had a magazine with them, with the Mars rovers in the pack, and I thought, I'm not very good in landscapes, so I do a rover. I done a moon rover, and I thought, yeah, I'll have a crack at the Mars rover. So it started off using balsa wood, and I took the image of one of the magazines I've seen of the Mars rover, and the platform, I made the shape. That's all I took off the original Mars rover. The rest was out of my own head. So I started off with that. Then I went on to put in the silver for the solar panels. I got 2, one each side and one on the back. Then I fitted 365-degree camera. For the camera, I used bits of Lego for the lens. Then I put little diamonds in the middle for the camera face. I put wire in, coming from the camera, into the post, going down, and underneath the rover there's a false container, which all the electrics will be in there for it to join onto, and it's all remote control. And I done the same thing with the solar panels, but I've got a dome. Instead of just plain top, I put a dome on it with a camera going through it, so I got a 360-degree view in of the camera. I used a air freshener gel bottle, and it was perfect for what I wanted. What else did I put on there? Antennas worked from underneath, coming from all the electrics. I had generators inside the dome. Then I had the 6-wheeler, and every wheel was working simultaneously. Then I come to the base. I used sand, play sand for children, but I dye off my neighbour, red dye, and I dyed a few little rocks to put on the surface, and really just roughly about the colour I wanted. Not exact, but it was close. The lights then, I used little diamonds for the reflectors on the front of the lights, back and front, like a sequins. I didn't have the real ones to put on it, so I improvised what I had around the house. Then I sprayed the rover silver around the solar panels on the edges. I had a black border, so it brought the silver out on the rover, like, and I enjoyed every minute of it. It took me about a good week and a couple of days to finish it, but I was happy with the end product. I took her over to the venue, and they were over the moon with it.
I'm Sarah and I'm 7 years old. We went over to the community centre and watched 3D shows. We learnt all about Mars, and because we were watching a 3D movie, all the asteroids looked like they were coming for us, and it made me go to grab them. After the shows, we had art packs, and we made a collage with Mars and other planets. On week 2, we made satellites out of matchboxes, and we made 3D collages and cut out pictures of rovers from a magazine and put them on springs. We made pop-up cards about what plants we can grow on Mars and what food we can grow. We made rockets and went outside to launch them in the sky. They went really high. We made a model of Mars with volcanoes and craters with Grampy and Mammy. Grampy braided it and Mammy made the volcanoes. I helped colour in the craters, and we took it over for the exhibition and for everyone to see it. And now we'd like to sit out the back and look for satellites.
We took part in this project by an invite from Emma. We learned a lot about Mars and made all different things in regards to Mars and the space satellites. It was very helpful for my family, most beneficial to my boy Jacob, as he suffers from learning and behaviour problems. He does struggle some days with his concentration and understanding of things, but Emma and Sarah was a great help explaining stuff to him step by step, what he had to do to help him concentrate on different activities, which was really helpful for him. This project also helped myself, as I suffer bad with anxiety and stress, meeting new people also. It helped me meet new people, and the task we were given helped me keep my mind off things and helped me concentrate on tasks I was given, which I really enjoyed, as I love art and making things. We had art packs that we brought home. We made all different kinds of things at home, which we really enjoyed. We made satellites, the solar systems, the little robots, and we made the rockets and rovers. Me and Jacob loved making these in the house. The community will really benefit from these projects, as there's not much to do in the community, and this project is something different. We learned a lot about Mars, satellites, robots, rockets, and jobs in the UK Space Agency. I would definitely do it again. Massive thank you to Sarah and Emma.
I enjoyed watching the 3D shows about the planets and stars. I liked the asteroids coming towards us. We learned lots about Mars. It's half the size of Earth and covered in iron oxide. That's why it's red. We used stuff from our art packs to make a landscape of Mars. We made Olympus Mons out of quick-drying clay and plasticine. We made rovers from cardboard and satellites out of matchboxes. I learned lots about the UK Space Agency. I think it would be really cool to drive a remote-controlled rover or drone on Mars.
Had a nice time in the workshops, and I've made like a rocket. I've made like the galaxy, and I've made a rocket that we can launch into the sky, and we've made loads of stuff.
Would you like to go to Mars one day?
No.
What about working for the UK Space Agency? Would you like to have a job?
Yeah.
What type of job would you like?
I want your job. My name is Kenji and I'm 7.
What have you been making?
Rockets, spaceship, alien ship, and that's the rock where I put all the stickers on. Sellotape, a box and a plastic cup and sellotape.
Would you like to go to Mars one day?
Yeah,
Would you like to work for the UK Space Agency when you're older?
yeah.
What would you like to do?
Astronaut.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's brilliant, Emma. That was a brilliant interview there. I love the one, I want your job.
So funny. And Kenzie as well. Oh, bless. Now, Kenzie is very chatty, isn't he, Sarah? Every week he would chat and chat away.
Yeah.
But it was so funny. As soon as you put the microphone in front of him, he didn't want to talk then. But I found that with the majority of them, as they were so nervous, bless them, to talk on the radio. But they all basically had the same things to say, really, how they enjoyed it and how it was beneficial for the community. And giving them lots of things to do, especially in the period of like lockdown. And,
yeah. No, that's brilliant. So we move on to Perseverance, shall we?
Shall we?
Shall we? Well, it's happening now, isn't it? It's right now. It's lurking about the Martian surface as we speak.
Yeah.
Let's share the screen again. Here we go. Where are we? Where's my PowerPoint presentation? There we go. Tell me if that comes back up. Should do in a sec. Yeah, there we go. Has that reappeared?
Yeah.
Says AstroCymru. See,
yes.
Advertising all the time for you. There we go. So, well, with Perseverance, as we know, we've got a rover on Mars at the moment. And I mean, it was like something out of sci-fi, the way it landed on Mars. You know, it had a little sky crane and it had a little rover strapped underneath and it lowered it to the surface of Mars. Who'd have thought that would work? I mean, when kids see that, they think it's unreal. But it did actually happen. And that's the way it happened. And of course, that landed. When did that land? February. It's only this year, 18th, 2021. So it's only been there for a short while. But what it's been doing has been absolutely fantastic. The images it's sending back are unreal. I always say, you know, you get a surveillance camera at a bank and they want to identify somebody and you get this hazy picture of some guy in a woolly hat and that's all you get. Yet from Mars, we're looking at grains of sand. So I think we need to use Perseverance's technology in real life as well. But
and wasn't the material for Perseverance actually made in Tiverton and Devon?
I think that was the parachutes, wasn't it? Yeah, they were made in Devon. So there was some stuff made here in the UK, but there's also, if any of the kids get a chance to watch National Geographic, there's a whole program on how they built it and how sterile the place has to be when they build it. I don't think an operating theatre is as sterile as the place where they built it, Perseverance, but it is absolutely fantastic. And if kids want jobs in the space industry, aim to get a job as a space engineer working in something like that. It'd be incredible. But I've got a little video of the landing. Shall we have a look at that?
Yeah.
We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground.
Indicate chute deploy.
The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Heat shield set.
Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic speeds and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
It's amazing to see the surface of
Nav
Mars as
filter
it comes up.
converge. Velocity solution 3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4 kilometers.
Now has radar lock on the ground. Current velocity is about 100 meters per second, 6.6 kilometers above the surface of Mars. Perseverance is continuing to descend on the parachute. We are coming up on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers.
LVS valid.
We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Priming. TBA is nominal.
We have priming of the landing engines.
Back shell set.
Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
TRN safety Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars. We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver. Sky crane maneuver has started, about 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO. Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
And
it's
of course,
so nail-bitingly exciting, isn't it?
well, the sky crane maneuver, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You know, you've got this thing hovering and then it just lowers it down as if it's just lowering something, you know, here on Earth, but it's actually on another planet. And that's something that's it's hard to believe. But of course, Perseverance, it didn't only take itself there, it also took a little drone, or they like to say helicopter, but it's nothing more than a drone, really. And the idea was to see if you could fly in the thin atmosphere of Mars, because Mars has a much, much thinner atmosphere than the Earth. So it's only 1% of what the Earth has. So it's very difficult to fly. So they sent this little drone helicopter with two blades that rotate extremely fast. And the idea was to make the first flight. Now, for people that have heard of the Wright brothers, they made the first flight by an aeroplane here on Earth, and they took a little piece of the Wright brothers plane to Mars to make the first flight. So that was a little bit of history there. So something to remember into your old age. But of Perseverance itself, it took a selfie. Can you see the picture of the selfie there? It's got several cameras, so it can photograph itself. So it took the first selfie of itself on Mars. And then it dropped the helicopter from beneath itself onto the surface of Mars, ready to make the flight. And you can see the helicopter sitting there as well on the surface of Mars, ready to make its flight. Now, it is hard to believe that you're looking at something on the surface of another world. But some of the pictures it sent back are of the area that it's landed. And the reason it's landed in this area, it's Jezero crater, but it's a river, what they call a river delta, where a river flows into a lake. And the idea is, if there was water flowing here, then there's a possibility that there would have been life here. So that's what they're looking for, evidence that life is within the rocks samples that they take are in Jezero crater, and see if they can see any evidence of life, fossils, evidence of microbial life. And eventually they're going to hopefully send another spacecraft to Mars to actually pick up these samples and bring them back so we can examine them under more detail here on the Earth. But there we have a photograph of the rock-strewn surface of Jezero crater. I processed these up recently. And you can also see the edge of Jezero crater in the distance. And again, like I say, they are so clear, you think you're looking at a desert on Earth, but this is another world. This is Mars. When you go outside and look up in the night sky and you see that little red dot, just imagine that's what's on there. And of course, we can see again, moving up to the edge, part of the edge of one of the craters, you can see the sand there on Mars, the sand whipped around by the winds on Mars. Yes, we have weather on Mars. We have clouds on Mars. We don't have rain on Mars, but we have weather, and we have clouds, and we have little dust storms called dust devils. And occasionally you can see these dust devils. But again, we're looking at towards the edge of the crater there. And then we'll look up at the rocks that are going to make samples of. This rock is only probably about 12 inches across. So you're looking at the rock and you're looking at the sand particles. That's sand on the surface of another world. You're looking right close up to the sand. And that rock has probably sat there for billions, not millions, but billions of years. And that's looking close up at another rock. And you can see even where the dust has blown, the sand and dust has blown onto the rock there on the surface of Mars. So that rock again is probably only about 12 inches to 16 inches across. So you're looking really, really close in with this new rover. But I said we can see weather on Mars, and we can. And here I managed to capture, you can just see it up here, a little dust devil whipping across the Martian surface there, whipping the dust up like a little mini tornadoes. But one of the biggest feats was to fly this helicopter, this little drone. And this is a little video of the drone in flight. You can see it starting up there, down in the bottom left, and you'll see it take off in a minute. There it goes, little drone, and there it flies. For the first time, a little drone had flown on another world. Amazing to see. There it goes, away it goes. And of course, we've been able to take photographs from the drone, and that is a photograph of the Martian surface from the little drone up there in orbit. A few feet above the surface, not quite in orbit now. But there we can see a nice image of the surface of Mars, and there'll be better photographs coming back from the helicopter soon, showing Perseverance, the rover itself. But you can see the shadow of the helicopter in the bottom there. And one of the other beautiful things you can see on Mars, because Mars, as I say, it's very much got the same length of a day as the Earth. It's only a few hours longer than the Earth's day. And what we can see is sunrises and sunsets on another world. And it's lovely to be able to log in, get the data and analyze it and look at the sunset or sunrise. And this is the sunset on Mars from Perseverance. There is the sun setting behind the crater, behind the edge of the crater Jezero. And I think that's just a lovely scene to see. So keep your eye on Perseverance. More data will be coming back. More pictures will be coming back. More interesting ones when the little helicopter takes its flight. And it's going to be going on for a few years yet. So I hope that you get the chance to get onto the Perseverance site. And if you get onto the Perseverance site, you as youngsters can actually download the data and process it yourself if you understand how to process. And I'm sure Emma will run you all through all that in the future on how you can do little workshops on how you can actually download the data and just use something like Photoshop or GIMP or any of the products that you can get to analyze pictures. You'll be able to make your own interpretations and turn them into your own art, make them look how you want. Post pictures of aliens on the surface of Mars. Put your own aliens on Mars. Do what you like. But
that would be really cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
and I think with these images, they're so familiar, like the ones with the rocks with sand on. They look so familiar.
Yeah.
It's almost as if you can walk on them.
It's amazing when I'm processing them. I feel like I can reach in and put my hand into that sand. And you think as well, when you're looking at that, you have to realize that if you were stood there, you wouldn't survive because there's no air to breathe. It's too cold, but it looks so Earth-like, but it isn't.
But do you think in the future, Pete, that humans will be walking on Mars? Do you think that we're in the generation where we will see humans on Mars? I like to think so.
I'd like to think so. I think it's going to be a long way off yet. I think we've got the technology to get obviously we've got the technology to get spacecraft there, but as we know, 50% of Mars missions still fail It's still a difficult place to land. And to get humans there, we've got to be able to transport materials there. We've got to be able to transport water, you know, otherwise we've got to work out how we can make water on Mars. And also, there's things that people don't think about. Think about this, and I'm sure the children will think about this. If you're on Mars and somebody breaks the law on Mars, if there's 4 or 5 of you go to Mars and somebody breaks the law, whose laws apply? Whose laws apply? Also, what happens if you fall ill on Mars? You can't go to the doctors. So you need to take some form of medical
Lots of things to take into consideration.
Because
but in the meantime, what we can do though is we can carry on raising awareness of the space industry and the UK space industry, and hopefully inspire the next generation of space engineers and space scientists.
Yeah. And that's what you're doing, Emma, and that's what you're doing, Sarah. You're doing a grand job. And you've got to keep going and keep doing it. And as I say, I was involved a little bit with the moon one that you did.
That's right, yes.
Sadly, I couldn't come down and be involved with the Mars one because of the situation we were.
Yeah, COVID, yeah.
But maybe next time do Jupiter. Because there's more.
Maybe the solar system.
Maybe the solar system or the moons of the solar system, because that's where you might find the life.
There is so much potential, so many different projects that we can do on space.
I think so.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah.
And thank you to Sarah and Emma for inviting me. Thank you and goodbye.